There was a recent meeting in Iran between President Putin and the president of Iran. Um, you know, I I don't really have any opinion about the. It appears like the thing to respond to based on the YouTube short is, is the level at which uh, uh, Iran and Russia are willing to push themselves forward or out together, the level at which any nation state is willing to do that in order to support some shared interest, um, which has never been the values and virtues of the West. Um, in a very strange sense, I think, if you just decide, like, okay, well, whatever is going to happen is going to happen or something, um, you know, you just say, like, yeah, how does this affect the world, affect the U.S., or affect the world, affect Russia, or affect the world, affect Iran? And, you know, it's, um, you know, yeah, it's, I think the funny thing is the West has always adopted liberal values and, the more traditional notions of justice in this one sense, um, which really deeply lives across this value for like open economic zones, and then having wealth which eventually demands reciprocity, um, using every fancy word I know, um, which is cool. Yeah, you know, I think the other side of it is, you know, one of the themes which should exist is that there's this disproportionate uh, level of lack of reciprocity which is developed alongside technology and modernization. Um, I think this is something that the Chinese government probably cares about more than anyone. The Chinese government is probably deeply aware of the fact that China's whatever level of liberalization and leveling effects of economic development and growth, as well as sort of preserving, that those deeper aspects of Chinese identity and how they relate to the rest of the polity. Um, they they're not able to totally ignore, what happens, and so, you know, it's interesting when you sort of bump that back a little bit and say, well, like, um, the big scheme of things, we're all just sort of doing, but what are you guys doing? It's a little funnier um, in the U.S. context, because we do this, uh, answering my question, I think, um, you know, it's this. I don't know. It's this almost like elimination of identity that's what the U.S. buys. That when you can buy more, once you get above a certain threshold, what you buy is there's just not an American identity anymore, which is really annoying to me. It's great to just be able to chill out a little bit. Um, yeah. Um, yeah. But it has to be that way. I think when we look back at the ways that religion related to sort of industrial identity and urbanization, um, almost this fact that you could have this almost totality of an environment take you over, that was one of the things that almost it appeared to make every externality invisible. You didn't actually need to have sort of a decision process about these things. You just needed to be able to deal with them. And so, conversely, I think when the hardest American position to get past is when you eliminate or remove the ability to stand up for whatever values are coming out of that. This sort of, there's almost this value of just time and computation that it takes to adapt and adjust in the system. Then that's one of those things that's it becomes a little more difficult. And so, I don't know how to say that. I think one of the weird things is like if you're running or wrestling or something and you get these really sort of like, like the hardest position I can get in is where I'm twisting my back a little bit and you can see my elbows out, however you want to say that. And I can twist and get back. So what's happening is my heart and my lungs and all this stuff is pumping right here. I think that's what that is. And what that's doing is it's locking in this position, but it's totally exciting, like this almost dropping of the metabolism down about like what we might say is normally more like tribal values and stuff like this. And so like what we should imagine this does ultimately is it renders every other value set obsolete. It renders every other value set obsolete when you're forcing civilizational, societal motion to just work, to just do that work. Even like this, you're creating this, if you get the looseness going, you're popping and you're even getting your chest and your shoulders can sort of transfer tension. Both sides are getting into it. And then you have like your first factory or something, right? Your first truly dependent nation state scale baby is what that is. And you all of a sudden have this entirely new ideology and set of beliefs about how the world works and how the world should work and can work that just don't fit anywhere else. They don't fit anywhere else. They can't. And they operate based on, at least up top, they operate based on movement. So just in the context of this, like maybe what I would say is like my very gut American answer to this question about Russia and Iran, and more deeply collaborating is that, in the U.S., what always ends up slipping into these motions, the very critical reading is that our violent motions in society slip into everywhere else, everything else that we do. And when they rest, well, they don't really like to rest. They're still growing. Everything is still growing. Everything is still growing, which is, And so one of the weird things is that, it's the way we take in information and make sense of that conflict that's just organic in a society is really brutal, because we should imagine that there's so much more information. You're pulling from somewhere, you're taking from somewhere, you're pushing someone down, you're pushing something else down, you're taking something someone else wanted, something someone else needs. That Thomas Hobbes sort of brutality of modern polity and nation state. At the end of the day, just the differences that exist when you just say that means that at some point you should be able to, more than Sunday, not just Sunday, but every day of the week, you should have something else that you can focus on and work on. And at some point, you gotta fucking ask the question, You know, what's a giant fucking spotted leopard or a saber-toothed tiger? What's he gonna do? What's he gonna do when it's time for him to go out and hunt? Yeah, I think the answer is he's gonna lie about it. He's gonna say that he's half man, half beast. That's never the case. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say. It's getting cool out. So this is maybe cool weather, Nathan.